listen to a whole lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
Um, I prefer to, have the book, not the phone. I prefer to have a book in my
It's like what?
hand. I just wanted to show that I was holding something.
Something physical?
Yeah, I prefer to hold the book in my hand and curl up on the couch or in my bed
Right.
and read the book. I like going to the bookstore and buying books. But for certain things, I don't mind doing an audiobook.
Okay.
Um Previously, I'd say fiction. I'll do audiobooks um and then like biographies, things like that. I've listened to audiobooks. So I decided I've been reading this novel for a while. Reading is probably not the right word. I've been attempting to read this novel for a while,
Okay.
and I haven't finished the book. I'll take it with me all the time. Then always feel like I don't have enough time on the train because my ride is so short. Like just whatever. So anyway, or I'm distracted. One day I was getting my hair done and trying to read the book, and this girl was like, and the girl doing my hair was like, "You're not reading that." Well, yeah, because you keep talking to me, ma'am. She literally kept talking to me,
Ah,
and then
that's
had the
mad
nerve to
funny.
tell me I wasn't reading my book. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to read my book and
Right.
talk to you? I probably would have finished the book that day.
That's
Anyway,
mad funny.
so I'm reading this book. I was like, oh shoot, I think this is on audiobook. Let me listen to it, see if I can finally get through it or at least make a dent in the book. I start listening to it. Now, the way the book is written is from the perspective of one character, and it's also from the perspective of another character. So the chapters switch off each character, right?
Okay. That's interesting.
So there's a woman character, and then there's a man character that's alternating in the book.
Okay.
So I turn it on. I decided to just start it from the beginning. So I turn it on and I hear the woman's voice, and oh, I should preface this by saying this is a Black author.
Okay.
So the woman starts talking and I'm like, something's off here. What's going on? And I'm listening, and then finally I realized why it felt weird. I mean, not only do I not listen to novels, so that's strange, but also I was waiting for the lady to sound Black.
Oh, that was your mistake.
I was waiting for her to sound Black.
That is your mistake.
she she does not sound like a Black woman. I
The
don't know if I'm allowed
person.
to say that she doesn't sound like a Black woman, but she doesn't. And
No, I
it's
think that's fair because. Sorry to cut you off. I think it's fair because of the fact, which I think is where you're going, that all the authors who write the books don't also do the audiobooks.
also like, if I'm reading a book that I know was written by a Black lady, I'm listening in Black lady. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. I am listening in my head because I don't know how you read. I don't know how anyone else reads, but when I'm reading a book, especially if it's a novel, I'm like reading it in voices. Like I'm imagining voices in my head. Like that's a part of the experience for me. So when this woman is talking, I hear her as a Black woman when I'm physically reading the book. Now that the audiobook is on, I'm like, where's the Black lady? Because this person doesn't. And what's wild is that she's, there's different people talking in the book, right? Even
Yeah.
though she's the narrator. So she has to change her voice between the character that's narrating and then these other characters too.
The person reading the audiobook.
Yes.
Okay. So you got three voices in this audiobook.
She's doing the
from
voice
one
of the
reader.
children. She's doing the voice of the girlfriends. She's doing the voice of the men.
I mean, that sounds wildly entertaining.
Okay, so here's the thing. After I got past like chapter one, which maybe also because I had already read a few of the chapters, I needed to get past the chapters I read in order for me to not feel that way anymore. Because I'm actually really making my way through the book now. And it's okay. I've made peace with the fact that she doesn't sound like she's black. But the voices are hilarious. Like, yes, when she's also the male voice is doing the same thing, which
Oh,
is
so there's two readers.
which is wildly entertaining. Yes. So um the woman character, because the reason I'm not saying more is because I don't want to give away what the book is. I don't want to.
It's fine.
This is a great author, and I don't want to,
It's fine.
I
Yeah,
don't want to
I
attach
think it's
this
okay.
to that. But yes, so the woman character is read by a woman, and then the male character is read by a man.
That's fine.
Now that's the nigga. But
All right, wait, pause. Let me ask you something. Is this book urban? Is this supposed to be like where
it's
you
by a black
know?
woman. It's a black woman's story. Like,
Yeah, but there's different tonality in the way things are written, right? I can write a perspective of a woman.
uh-huh.
My perspective of a woman could be an Irish woman, an Italian woman, American black woman, an African, but no, regardless what their ethnicity is,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't mean that the verbiage in the book is written in that dialect or in their same speech patterns of that culture. And so that's why I'm asking, is this book written in an urban American black woman tone? Yes. Okay.
The book is written like, okay, so the character, again, I'm trying not to give away too
I can
much,
give an
but
example if that's
but the
helpful,
character
so you don't have to.
no, but I was gonna say the character is Afro Latina.
Okay.
That's
So
how
we
she
stopped on
identifies.
it.
No. Anyway, so yeah, she's Afro Latina. She identifies as such. She does. And her friends, while they don't say the ethnicity of her friends, it's very clear that I'll say at least one of them is black. And the way that the friend talks
Mhm.
is very much signaling to you that she's black, as far as I'm concerned, unless I'm interpreting it wrong. But so now you have this lady like trying to do this woman's accent, the one friend.
Yeah.
So you're right. It does. After a while, it just became entertaining because I was like, now she's doing everybody's voices.
Well, that's why I asked, because I don't mind saying what I'm listening to. I'm currently
Uh-huh.
listening to two books.
Yeah.
One is, and I think it's interesting to see the difference. One
Mhm.
is Gary Vee's latest book, right?
Uh-huh.
And Gary Vee is the author, but you could also hear when Gary Vee goes quote unquote off script. And he'll say it even. He'll say, all right, I'm going off script for a minute. What you
Yeah.
motherfuckers need to understand is blah, 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 blah. And so I think that's always funny when he does it because you can
Right.
hear his tone change. And sometimes he doesn't say it immediately. Sometimes he'll switch. And then at the end of what he says, he'll be like, all right, obviously that last part, I was going off script. Now back
Yeah.
to the book. So that's one example which I find funny and realistic. Now, the other
Mhm.
example, which is similar to what you're saying, is I'm currently listening to one of David Goggins' books. He's got two books. I'm currently listening to one of them. And he does not read his books. His
Oh, I don't
co-author,
like that
who's a white
either.
guy,
I don't like that
his
either.
co-author, who's a white guy,
Hmm.
is reading the book. So it's exactly what you're saying, where it's like, he's saying things how he talks. And
Right.
the white co-author is saying things how he talks, including, once in a blue, the N word, which is discussed in the book. It's usually that someone called him Nigger, and then they'll discuss it. Not Gary. David Goggins does this thing in between chapters where he does an like a mini podcast. So they speak about that in the book, but
Okay.
it's really interesting. So they speak about it, and the author says like, He breaks the fourth wall. And he's like, we had a little bit of a debate because I didn't want to say those words for many reasons. But
Yeah.
David, you pushed me to do it. And he's like, yeah, you telling the story. Tell the story. You got my permission. I don't give a fuck. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because you're hearing, and if you're a fan of Goggins, you know a lot of these stories from
Yeah.
podcasts or whatever mini videos he puts up online. But you're hearing this other person say it in a totally different tone, and it sounds more like an audiobook being read. So it's really interesting because you can even hear when it's like, yeah, motherfucker. You know how Goggins would say, yeah,
Oh,
motherfucker.
that's funny.
But in the book, it doesn't sound like that when you're reading the audio, when you're
Right.
listening to the audiobook, because the person is like, so I shouted, yeah, motherfucker. And then I slapped
Right.
my friend. High five.
Right.
Yeah.
I do like an expressive audiobook. I like when, they're more animated. I will say that.
Yeah.
And I don't like when biographical works are read by other people. I think they should be read by the people they're about. Um
I can understand that.
I can understand why they maybe wouldn't want to, and that's fine too, but I just like it better when people read for their own audiobook.
I know this
Um
has nothing to do with it, but I just had
mhm,
a thought as you said that.
mhm.
It would be fly if the person's spouse read the audiobook.
Yeah.
Like if I went to listen to the Will Smith audio biography
And Jada read
and
it.
Jada Pinkett was reading,
I think that would be great. That would be awesome. I would love that.
that would be funny. Or like if I
But
go to listen to Viola Davis' book and her
and her
husband is
husband's
reading it,
reading it.
I'd be like, what's going on here?
But I like that though, because we're kind of in on it in a
Yeah,
sense.
I think that would be
Um,
cool.
what I was gonna say about the male voice though. So the male voice,
You said he's black, yeah.
I I would imagine so. I know we're not supposed to say that we can tell, but
No, you can tell.
so but
Unless
um
they're Aquafina.
no, we can still tell. So so
Ah, man.
what I was gonna say though is he has to do the same thing when he's reading the male chapters.
Having various voices.
He does various voices.
That sounds fly.
And I do want to say you don't have to do it, but I've heard you speak in a woman's voice before.
I got a girl voice. I do. I do.
Right. And this
Got a guy
man
voice too. It's just not called for very often.
this man clearly had a girl voice in his arsenal
You gotta
before
have
he
that.
did
You know
this
what I mean?
audiobook.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the woman does the same thing because she has to also speak parts that are spoken by a male character. So she too deepens her voice. He has this really high pitched.
This is good.
It is so funny.
Hmm.
But again, now that I've gotten past the first couple of chapters, I've made peace with it. But I just and listen, maybe this person. Never mind. It doesn't matter. So um yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up because I wanted to see. I mean, I don't know how many novels you read, but I was fascinated by this. This is the first time I've ever done a novel on audiobook, and I'm like, I'm still trying to decide if I like it or not because the voices thing is a little weird, but also funny. But also, I'm making it through the book, and I'm glad because I knew how interesting it was. I just couldn't like
Get
fix
through it.
my brain to finish reading the book. So I'm
Yeah.
getting through it. I'm like halfway through the book now.
Yeah, I don't really
So,
listen
yeah.
to novels, or read them to be honest at this point. Not that I'm against them, and just I listen more to like business and self help stuff today.
Yeah.
But it does catch me off guard when I listen to an audiobook and a person who wrote it isn't doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but even the stuff I listen to, I would say it's probably 70-30. 70% of the time, it's not the person who wrote the book. And that's where I always find it interesting. Like I listened to one book, and this author usually does their books, but I guess they were busy. And like some famous actor did their audiobook. And I was like, I know exactly who this is. Why are you doing an audiobook?
That's
This is
cool
like a
too.
favor or something? Like, what the hell?
Probably.
Yeah.
That's cool
They
too.
weren't an A-list actor, but we know.
But it was somebody known,
I
right?
immediately was like, I know who this is. And I
Yeah.
looked it up to check, and I was like, I knew it. I know you. Not personally, obviously, but I knew who
Right.
it was. I recognized who it was.
Yeah. And I think if it's, to your point, if it's like a business book, if it's some sort of self-help or something like that, I don't really care who voices it, right? Just as long as the voice is pleasing to the ear, I think is
Yeah.
the most important thing, which
Oh,
there
like you
these
told me
things.
about a book. Remember, we had a conversation off pod. You told me about a book, and I was like, "Oh, I'll listen to the audiobook." And it's boring as hell. I can't get through it. And there are
Yeah.
three different authors reading it, three different
Oh, I know it's
narrators
good.
reading it. Excuse me. And I'm like, y'all are all boring. Why are none of you good at this? But maybe that's the pace they were told to do it in.
Right. And for a book like that, it's
Because a lot of audiobooks, in my experience anyway, they're not super exciting.
right, but and
There's this like
the book that I told you
mellow,
about wouldn't be wouldn't be an exciting audiobook anyway. So
yeah,
probably better to just read it.
yeah,
Read the actual book.
probably,
But yeah, I just thought it was funny. I said, Now where is the black voice?"
yeah. Surprise,
Surprise, surprise.
surprise.
Oh, I was gonna do surprise, surprise,
Right,
surprise, surprise.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I had fun with it the first couple of chapters, but I've forced myself to get past the first few chapters just to make sure that, you know, and it's been fine. I've been fine. Been-
gotcha.
I've been more eager to put it on now that I've gotten over that little,
Take some time to get used to it.
yeah,
I understand.
exactly.